Hey guys, welcome back to Grand Prix World. Last time out, we had big success with the sealing of a 3-year sponsorship deal, team sponsorship deal with Red Bull. That has enabled us to sort of guarantee the survival of the team, um, regardless of what happens with other sponsors. So everything else now, obviously, we want and is good. But that 18 million gives us a lot of freedom, particularly in 2001 when we still have two pay drivers under contract. And beyond that, it will enable us to bring in drivers of a higher caliber who perhaps cost money rather than bring it. That said, if we look at the statistics here, Deniz is developing quite nicely. His wet weather performance is, you know, it's one bar away from being truly world class. His concentration is 3. I mean, he could do with some more speed, but a good performance this season could probably address that. I think he shapes up as a fairly passable number 2 driver. There are better out there, but he does bring 9.6 million. Carl Eisen doesn't seem to be learning a great deal so far. His statistics have not changed. Nakano, I think, will be the driver that we have to lose. He's very rarely outperformed Deniz this season, and I don't actually see that changing for once. Excuse me. Before we go on, this will be the last Grand Prix World video until the weekend. It had been my plan to shoot this episode and then shoot the qualifying and race for Monaco today as well. That's no longer going to happen because I have some other videos lined up. I've been neglecting the non-Grand Prix World viewers for months now. So today I hope to get both out, but there will be, if all goes according to plan, a track day manager video, and there will be the beginning of my playthrough of TIE Fighter, hopefully. The TIE Fighter playthrough is going to be very intermittent. Zero Space Program will be back at the weekend, so we're back to having 4 playthroughs on the go. Grand Prix World will still be absolute top priority. We have to have a conversation at some point about how that's going to develop, and where we call a finish to it, whether that's after winning a championship, after a successful title defense, or if we're going to play through the entire 10 seasons. I'm not adverse to the idea of just playing this all the time. I really like the game. I'd probably be playing it anyway, but it's probably more interesting to change teams every now and then. So it could be that we do a 10-season career managing Arrows, and then we start again as a 10-season career managing Stewart or Sauber or somebody else. We'll maybe not have to make a decision right now, but I'll keep an eye on your feedback and we'll see where we take things from there. So, one moment. So we're on the run-in here for San Marino. Let's take a look. Rubens Barrichello won the last race, although Frentzen started on pole. Nothing. Oh, there we go. David Coulthard will switch to Benetton. That's very interesting. Frentzen got the fastest lap. Jean Alesi will switch to Sauber. John Newhouse will stay at McLaren. Ricardo Zonta will be driving for Jordan, so he's replacing Alesi, presumably. Zepter have signed with McLaren. Fiat will sponsor Williams. Damon Hill could be on his way to Ferrari. That's very interesting. Still no major announcements on engines or tyres so far, which is quite unusual. Usually a team or two will snap up a very early engine deal, but I guess some are on multi-year deals as it stands. Before we dive into the races, I guess it's a good time to do a little bit of analysis for those of you who are maybe still on the process of learning the game or would like a little bit more insight. Something I took a look back at some of the older videos, and I've clicked through some of the the statistics that I've got a notepad file just to make sure I keep track of things from now on. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze again. Thank you. The main thing to point out is, although we aren't winning championships right now and we aren't consistently winning races, there's no reason actually why we couldn't be. We got tied into our deal with Deniz and Nakano for an extended period, and our budget shows that we could have fired one. Actually, we could have probably got rid of Nakano, survived that cost, and probably signed someone like Trulli or maybe even Votes. Good drivers at the lower end of the price spectrum, and we could be pushing for better results more consistently. We could also have made a more concerted effort to hire a higher standard of designer. What we've done instead is played the way I would normally play, which is I'm very efficiency focused in direct contrast to how I live my actual life. So what we're doing is we are taking our time, but we're building a reliable underlying infrastructure. And you can do your own analysis on this as well if you chose to, but you'd probably come to the same conclusion as me, which is we provide as a team the best value dollar for dollar on the grid. Our budget has been consistently lower than our competitors. Even teams currently finishing way behind us have managed to land team sponsorship deals and more impressive works deals. I would say we probably don't have the lowest budget on the grid, but bottom 3 or bottom 4, I could imagine up until this season was definitely true. This year it's hard to say, but I'd still say we were in the bottom half. However, we were until quite recently continually qualifying in the top 10, and we were very reliable for points at the end of last season. I imagine the same will be true this year. So although if we were more reckless, let's say, I do say reckless because as I mentioned in the very first video and in the what we've learned video, it's very hard to keep track of the liquidity of your budget. And I know you're probably going to look back at the last few episodes and realise that our budget has been continually around 6 million. But that can very, very quickly change, and it doesn't take a lot to cause that to change. I like to have the team consistently in profit on a race per race basis, and if I spend more than that profit during a round, that's my decision. But I like to be in a position where when I go to race, when we come out at the other end of that round, we've got more money in our account than when we entered. That is, as I said to you before, probably a suboptimal way to play. The best way to play, I would guess, would be to have a stable budget of around 2 million, maybe 2.5. Anything over that, you're just not spending to your potential. We could arguably go ahead and drop 6 million now on a new factory, and we're in profit to such a degree that I would imagine, unless we were very unlucky or something unforeseen took place, we'd probably make enough money back between now and sort of the late season that we have the budget on hand to finish our final car builds. But I'm risk averse, because the thing is as well that if I make that decision and it doesn't work out, that's the end of the playthrough, and there's no do-overs in this game. So I think this has been a good example, particularly last season, of how doing the difficult groundwork and sort of picking your fights enables you to develop. I always describe it as economic capacity. It's exactly the same as being a StarCraft player, I suppose. If any of you have ever played StarCraft or watched competitive StarCraft or any other sort of competitive strategy game, the key is to expand and grow sustainably, and to continually spend what you make. So it's well known that if you're a competitive StarCraft player, you don't want to be building up resources. You want, as soon as you get enough resources for a unit, that unit should be in the production queue. It's kind of the same here to an extent. So take it as read that you want to be, I'd say, you should come out of a round, and if you've got 1.8 to 2 million in the bank, you're in a pretty safe position. In the short term, of course, you have to be able to sort of you have to sort of be able to maintain that level. It's okay to spend as long as you're confident you're going to maintain a budget around that level. I admit it's completely suboptimal, but the point is that this is even more suboptimal. I'm sitting on about 4.6 million more than I need to, and we're at a stage where it's kind of hard to know how to spend it, to be honest with you, without damaging ourselves, because what we could do, by all means, is drop all that cash or vast amounts of that cash on the testing program, and we could run huge test programs, running 450 miles every round, with all 3 cars running, and dumping a lot of mechanics in there. But then those mechanics can't work on the car, and we still have a small team. Even though our economic capacity is good, it's efficiency based. We are in the 3 smallest teams on the grid still. I would confidently say, I'd say it probably goes Minardi, Tyrrell, and then us. I'm sure Stewart have more staff. I know for a fact that Sauber have a level 2 factory already, because they start the game with a level 2 factory. I think Prost is the same, so we are a very small team in terms of manpower, and our success is coming from here and here, resulting in this. We've got 2 departments here producing a quarter, well, Nearest makes no difference, a quarter of their maximum on top of their maximum, reliably round after round. So, 124% efficiency is very efficient. It's exceptionally efficient. So we're getting a lot more work out of them than perhaps we should. And if results ever go bad, then, we're going to lose that. But what we did was, by consistently taking small steps, picking our fights carefully, deciding when it made sense to build a new car, when it made sense to repair the car, when it made sense to test, when it made sense not to test, we've been able to maneuver ourselves into a position where, yes, we're not winning, but we're consistently finishing above where we were expected to finish. Even now, and this will change next year, but even this season, our goal is to basically maintain where we are. It's not to go forward, and I'm confident we can go forward. So as long as we are hitting that target or above it, the morale problems should slowly but eventually, as we've seen, take care of themselves, and we'll be able to use that solid base of strategy to now grow the team really fast. It's a good punctuation point to have this conversation now, because what you're going to see over the rest of this season, and definitely next season, is when I'm speaking to you at the end of next season, the team that we're talking about is going to be massively different than the team we're looking at right now. That change is already taking place with the fact we're bringing in 4 and 5 star team leads. Between now and then, I'm almost certain that we will either be constructing or have already constructed further upgrades to our factory, and probably taking on extra staff. We will, beyond all doubt, be looking at 3 to 4 upgrade packages on the chassis reliably every year, and we'll be producing spare parts as if they were spare parts. And I don't want you to think that it's something we've done in the coming episodes or in the last few that has caused that to happen. It's every decision we've made since round 1 of season 1 has led to this moment. So where we've been very cautious in the past, and it is tempting to say, well, we're profitable, why not spend a bit more money here or there? You've got to kind of weigh that up on the fly and make a decision. But what we've done is make conservative but reliable decisions. As I say, we've been too conservative. I could have dropped 2 million and hired Gianno Trulli and had a driver that was consistently a better performer than Diniz or Nakano, and would reliably get the car home and in a higher position. But the driver, to me, is the least important element of success. And arguably, there are people who would argue that that's the same in real F1. It's about being in the right car at the right time, and our job as a team manager is not to develop a driver's career. It's to find a driver who, maybe we have to tell them not to push or whatever, but they're getting the car home. These two are capable of double podiums. We've seen double podiums from Diniz and Nakano, and I think the best display actually of how good we've come along in terms of efficiency and economic capacity, and particularly in how we've manipulated our resources to create the best technology we can, is while we don't have the best car on the grid, I think that's fair to say, these guys are both pushing at this level. Most teams will be running in the mid-range. That's standard. Some will be, Schumachers and the Häkkinens will be slightly more aggressive even. People like Panis even is so experienced, you can be generally quite aggressive with how certain things work. We have been super conservative. These guys are, let's not say they're not trying, but they're certainly not pushing to the limit. And they are still able to bring the cars home in point scoring positions. You might be thinking, well, why don't we push this up? We are still during this transitory phase. Transitionary isn't even a word, I don't think. We're still in this transitory phase where we still don't want them wearing the cars any more than we absolutely have to. We've made this gain, and it is a big gain. But the point I'm trying to sort of stitch into all this is that if you take it as read that every decision we've made since round 1, season 1 has led to how we're performing now, you don't jeopardize that by then getting ahead of yourself and being too aggressive in your pushing. It's taking a back of the grid team to the front of the grid and to championships is a 4 or 5 season process if you do it this way. There are ways to get there faster, but this way will always get you there. And that's what I've been trying to display. I don't think it takes the mystery out of the game. I don't think it stops people doing things their own way, and every playthrough is unique. There is an element of randomization. But what we're learning here really is sort of the core mechanics that will eventually deliver success. Anyway, that's probably enough waffle for this episode. Any questions, as always, just pop them in the comment box below and I'll be happy to address them. I hope you understand. I always feel when I'm doing these conversations with myself, these epic monologues, that I'm all over the place and it's quite hard to follow, but it's a simplified version of a complicated game, but it's still complex enough that describing it in a way that pays true attention to how interconnected every system in this game is means it's very complicated to explain. Anyway, pressing onwards and upwards. We've completed stage 1 of development of our B-spec, and we're going to go to the CFD simulation stage. We still don't know what effect this upgrade is going to have, but we know it's going to be important. Still no guidelines on next year's car. Our efficiency on the design is increasing, and I think in the next round or two we should complete stage 1 completely. As I always say, that's the most important stage, and that's why it's always important to get your CAD facility up as soon as possible. And I think it's cheap enough that in most cases you can go straight for a level 5 CAD facility for maximum benefit. I believe time invested here and this was what made last year's car, the base of it, so good, and the fact that we took everything through to completion, or as near to complete as we could, plus having a good designer, everything came together to deliver a car much better than anyone would have expected us to deliver. I still think this season's car is good. It has proven capable of delivering fastest laps. I think that shows there is pace in the car, but we just haven't exploited it correctly yet. And the question really, as we continue to learn how this car's working and where we can push and where we can't, the question is, why, what are we doing that's impeding the qualifying performance. Is there a decision we've made at some point that is causing that problem? I've done the analysis as best I could, and you're not going to like the answer, and the answer is no. There's no problem endemic to how we work that has prevented that from working out the way it should. That's just an effect of the sort of random element of gameplay. There's no visible statistics either here or here that would account for such a differential in performance. It's just one of the things that the game has decided, that our car seems to work much better with a heavier fuel load. As I said last episode, I see that as a positive. I think, race performance is what matters. But of course, we can't discount the importance of qualifying because, the further up you qualify, the less work you have to do to get the car up in front. We've got some development points to spend, so we're going to do that. And that might complete... No, it hasn't. Never mind, it was a nice idea. What we're going to do is we are going to deploy this technology upgrade, I think. It takes 25% of our guys. Maybe not, actually, because that prevents us from producing all the spare parts we need. I think this is where we're getting to the stage, and we wanted to get another car. We've got the budget for it, and we've got the people for it. So we've now got a research and development car that will aid testing. It also means we have a fresh chassis that we can use to keep in rotation, basically, enabling us to test and run cars that are in the best possible condition. We are going to move... Car 4 will be Deniz. Car 1 will fall to Nakano. Car 2 will be the T car. And car 3, with its 100% wear, is going to be the research and development car. Before we go testing, I'm going to have to make a decision on repairing car 3. I'm not going to do it. I'm not. I'm going to leave it until the next round. Instead, let's run another test program. We're spending a lot this round, but I expected it. We're going to do 270 miles of testing. It's less than usual. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pay for 300 miles. And we are going to resume tyre testing. And the focus of this test will primarily be, obviously the setup work, but primarily will be engine and tyres. So we'll punch that. Didn't get as much engine spec as I hoped we would, but now we've got the opportunity to create a new spec of wet tyre to address our concerns there. So let's do that. So I'm going to take one off tyre life, put it on grip. I think that's all we need, actually. So now you see we get a B designation, and that means it's not a it's an evolution of an existing compound. Let's look at it that way. And the AR, of course, designates that it is an Arrow specific specification. On the engine front, we still have work to do, particularly on responsiveness and fuel economy. As the car seems to work well while heavy, I don't know if we're damaging ourselves by increasing fuel efficiency. So spec 4 will be simply more responsive. That's important because we have Monaco coming up. So we want a car that is responsive across all gears, and one that it responds to driver input particularly well. So it is going to affect acceleration, which is a big factor at Monaco, as I'm sure you're well aware. Okay, car 4 has to be in perfect condition because I say so. And the car is in car 1, so we'll fix up car 1. On the sponsor front, as we discussed last time, we are now chasing Ford for a 2-season, 9.2 million a season works deal with development. We need to control the development of that engine because it's particularly unreliable. It doesn't require a lot of work elsewhere, so I don't think it's going to be this massive testing millstone around our neck. On with tyres, we're chasing the works deal with Bridgestone. Petrol, we're not actually looking at just yet because I'm happy to take a customer deal again if needs be. We are talking to HSBC and PIAA. Hopefully something comes along with that in the next round or two. On the budget front, we're already 2 million up, 2.1 million up on last season thanks to Red Bull's input. The car now looks like this. The Ford deal is really important as well, because if we can have an engine supplier and a team sponsor for the next 2 seasons, 3 in the case of the team sponsor, we can immediately go after the big money cash sponsors, and we can focus on getting hopefully a good multi-year works deal for the tyres and possibly the fuel and lubricants. And once we've got all that under our own control and we've grown the factory, we should be in a position to really develop stuff. Let's see what we're looking at now. It's 6 million total to upgrade the factory, $461,538 a round. We're making a profit of 280,000 last round. Yeah, we're not quite profitable enough at this stage in the season to cover that cost. The per round cost will go up as the season goes on as well, don't forget, because you're spreading the cost across fewer races. 6 million is a lot, but if we're going to take the next step, we have to make that purchase at some point. It could be that we have to delay it a season, which means I still think we've got a chance at the title in 2001. Honestly, I think it's possible. I'm prepared to almost guarantee a championship of one sort or another in 2002, because by then we will definitely have a level 2 or possibly even a level 3 factory, depending on how our finances stand with the Red Bull deal. And that gives us the ability to probably go supercomputer and either a testing rig or a workshop. The wind tunnels are so expensive. I know the benefit is there for the taking, but the hired wind tunnel serves its purpose quite well as it stands, and a level 5 wind tunnel is a huge investment on top of the factory expansion. So we will see. Let's get ready to race. Back in a moment. When you do a lot of talking like I do, you dry out, so I had to go get a drink there. All the sponsors we're bringing look good. We're spending plenty on hospitality, but I think that's necessary. We really want to chase Red Bull for as many bonuses as we can because it's a 3-year deal, so we're going to be feeling the benefit of those bonuses for quite some time. Deniz, we will set up thusly. Nakano we will set up differently. Chances are one's going to be suffering an impediment there, but whatever. And they're both going on the soft compound tyre. We're using our fantastic Spec 3 Ferrari Aeros engine because it's a massive step forward. It's lighter, it's more responsive, it's more reliable, and it's more powerful. San Marino is a great track to deploy that on as well. I'm not saying this is going to push us into a winning position immediately, but it is going to be a huge help. Let's dance. Apparently I didn't set everything up properly. Yep, okay. 27 degrees and cloudy. Soft compound for both is right. Let's see. 9th and 12th, so Deniz's setup is better, and it's worth about 4/10 if you consider them like for like. The Ferraris continue their dominant run. Frentzen on pole with Barrichello second. Alexander Wurz, again a strong qualifying in the Jordan, takes third. Johnny Newhouse, David Coulthard line up next to each other, except not, because it's a different row of the grid. I'm a fucking idiot. 4th and 5th. Jean Alesi takes 6th, and the Benettons take 7th and 8th. 9 goes to Peders, and the Stewarts take 10th and 11th. Down at the arse end of the grid, it's still a Tyrrell Sauber Williams mess. Prost and Minardi seem to be having their own battle 2 seconds up the road. Williams 2.2 seconds off the back of the Prosts with their fastest car. They are having an absolutely dire season. I don't know what they've done, but it isn't good. Let's talk race strategy. 19 degrees and very dry, which is good. So, usual deal. We don't want the car overfueled at all. My frame rate has dropped 2 frames per second for some reason. So I'm going to finish this take because I don't want to lose the qualifying. And then once the race is done, I'm going to have to stop recording and restart the game, I guess. If this plays back in real time, it's going to look very, very weird, so I apologise in advance. Okay, good luck everyone. Well, Nakano brings home a point, but something happened to Deniz. Frentzen takes the win. Ricardo Rosset takes second for Stewart. Their fantastic season continues. Benetton is third with Damon Hill. 4th and 5th go to Barrichello and Coulthard respectively. Jordan's terrible finishing record continues. A hydraulic failure for Alesi and for Wurz. Michael Schumacher also fails to finish. One of the Stewarts was out, and Deniz had a brake failure, which is surprising. I don't think our brakes are too much of a problem. Anyway, I'm going to join you again in a moment once I fix this frame rate issue. Speak to you soon. Welcome back, and there's bad news already, I can tell you. But first of all, let's go through the news and you'll see the bad news in due course. Frentzen won from pole, and we signed with Red Bull, which is great news for us. Shinji Nakano got a point. Ricardo Rosset's second place was his first point scoring position ever, so not a bad place to come in the mix there. Both Ferraris were in the top 6, and here's the bad news. At the last minute, Ford have distanced themselves from Arrows and signed a deal with McLaren. That was the final engine supply from Ford that was available, and so the works deal has gone to McLaren. That means I had a quick look off camera if Ferrari would talk to us again. They're still not sending a rep to the races, so we are back in the palm of Peugeot. It's bad news because we've lost 2 or 3 rounds of negotiating time there. However, we have managed to unlock a success card, which is the most effective card to play. So I'm going to drop that on the deal in the hopes that we can push for that 1-year works deal. It's unfortunate, but I guess you were right after all when you said that Ford probably wouldn't be a viable option for us. Ferrari have signed Damon Hill. Johnny Herbert will switch to Williams. Rubens Barrichello again had the fastest lap. Stefan Sarrazin will be driving for Benetton. Adrian Newey has gone to McLaren, as has Stefano Domenicali. Castrol have signed with Ferrari. Williams have signed MCI. The rules for next year's chassis are now in place. And we've discovered a driver aid. Oh, here we go. We should run more security on our car because I think someone's stolen one of our driving aids. Bastards, huh? Anyway, let's take a look at the design office. Our car is illegal, so this is a double blow for us, but efficiency is up, so I think we should be able to recover. We have to completely start that project again. We've gained no advantage from starting early. We weren't to know. Stage 2 of our B-spec chassis is complete, so we're ready to move onwards there. On sponsors, I just want to play this success advantage card on the Peugeot deal. We have seen some progress on the Bridgestone deal, but not enough really, and there is progress on the PIAA deal and the HSBC deal, so I think those could be achievable. They're both still willing to attend races with us, which means no one's seriously talking to them at the moment. I am concerned we could be left with a less than stellar list of suppliers. The Works Peugeot deal is touch and go. The quality of next year's chassis is touch and go, so every reason to keep watching, which is good. And as I was saying just before, we can't get complacent, and now I've completely been able to prove that. Everything's good on the staff front. What we need to look at is how knackered the cars are. Very is the answer. We aren't going to test this round, I don't think. Ferrari have released a new spec engine to everybody, but it is nowhere near as good as our spec 4. Yeah, nowhere near as good. And our wet tyre compound, Aero Specific, has arrived as well because we've got fast upgrades there. No new formula of race lubricants or fuel. I don't know. I'm feeling like by not testing we're missing an opportunity. But I think we need to get our house in order with the cars, to be honest with you. And I still want to deploy that technology upgrade. However, this is what I was saying. You have to know when to pick your fights, and this is not a fight to pick. So, car 1 has to be repaired. Car 4 has to be repaired, and car 4 also has damage, which we need to get rid of. Waste of spare parts for 1%, but it's so important that your race cars, not your test or your research and development, but your race cars have to be in the absolute best condition they can be in. This also means that we're not going to be too badly punished when we come to building our B-spec chassis. I am concerned about the AR2001A. Hopefully we don't suffer too badly, and hopefully this deal comes along. You're going to get some idea before the end of the episode. I really should press on, or else this episode's going to be all day and I'm never going to get around to my TIE Fighter playthrough. Okay, so there's no setup points to spend this time, so that is a disadvantage. We will be running with the new specification of wet tyre, and we'll keep them both on the soft compound. Actually, it's Spain, isn't it? I'm going to put Nakano on the hard compound. We've discovered level 1 active suspension, which is useless to us, so we'll file a complaint. And we're going to put some security on our car. And we're going to look for traction control on the Ferrari. Okay, let's hope the lack of testing doesn't impede us too much. It does mean we won't get another new formula of engine in time for Monaco, but I think the step forward we took was good enough. 23 degrees, very dry, so we're not going to end up using that wet compound tyre, but at least we've got it for when we need it. 11th and 12th is to be expected. We didn't deploy any points there. Still within 4/10 or so of pole, so not a million miles away. Johnny Newhouse takes pole in his McLaren ahead of Rubens Barrichello, and Alexander Wurz takes another third. The Jordans are qualifying well. Generally, it's very tight up at that area of the grid. I know it looks like we're going backwards here, but we really aren't. 23 degrees and dry. Also, bear in mind this is round 5, so the top teams, particularly Benetton, Williams, McLaren and Ferrari, will have a B-spec chassis for this race. Will be a few rounds behind generally, but assuming they can complete every stage of development in a single round, then usually, sometimes by round 4 if you get very lucky with your first test, but 4, 5 and 6 tend to be the rounds where most people get their B-spec chassis out. So we have a further disadvantage there. I nearly made a very stupid error there. Did you spot it? Nakano will run 33.32. And takes 4th. So the hard compound tyre was the correct decision there. That's good because that keeps us within striking distance of points. Unfortunately, Benetton have taken a 2nd place with Hill, thus widening the gap to claim that 4th position, but we are still on target for 5th. Alesi and Wurz both finishing the points, breaking the Jordan duck. 3 engine failures for Rosset, Takagi and Hakkinen. Frentzen also failed to finish with a electronic error on his car. Deniz had a bit of a shocker actually. Yeah, very interesting this season, isn't it? Nakano sits in 7th in the Drivers' Championship ahead of Deniz in 9th. In the Constructors, we're still 4th, but we are now 16 points behind Benetton. That's not an insurmountable gap, but we really need to get our B-spec chassis out as soon as possible. Jordan are now a mere 2 points behind us on 9, so we need to keep an eye on them because they're qualifying exceptionally well. Stewart as well have managed to pick up a good number of points. I don't consider Prost, Williams or Minardi a particular threat at the moment. Okay, so we're in the run-up to Monaco. Let's just take a quick look at the deals, and we've already got a partner deal with Peugeot if we need it. We are going to press on for the full works deal there. We've managed to pick up 2 bonuses with Red Bull. They really love us, and we've picked up an extra 500,000 or so there. We're pushing for the guarantee. Tyres, we can now only get a partner deal with Bridgestone. That's bad news bears. HSBC and PIAA deals are still kind of static, but we're getting through. I'm disappointed not to get a Works tyre deal, but I think it's too late in the season to begin courting Goodyear. We'll have to push for the partner deal again, and I guess our true championship push will, it'll have to be 2002, I guess, unless we get lucky next year. Johnny Newhouse won from pole. There's a Shell McLaren contract. Williams have taken that Works Bridgestone deal from us. Jordan had both cars in top 6. Pedro Diniz is not happy with the car. I think he's more unhappy that he didn't have any setup points distributed to his car. John Fellows will drive for Williams. Benetton got a sponsor. Ferrari got a sponsor. Good race start for Williams. Odd news all round. We haven't been testing, but you knew that already. Craig Pollock is still unpopular, and Eddie Jordan is, as ever, a popular gentleman. How are things going in the design office? We're way behind schedule on next year's car. Although this is exactly the place we'd be if we'd waited until the regulations were announced, so whatever. We're ready to take our B-spec into the wind tunnel, so let's hire the wind tunnel and get that developed as soon as possible. I'm sure you appreciate now exactly how imperative it is that we get that car out as soon as possible. We're now 3 or so million, 2 point something million ahead of where we were last season with the same two sponsors because of those bonuses. Thank you very, very much for joining me. I'm going to go record other things and set this to upload, and we'll go over where we stand in much more detail at the weekend when I'll see you for qualifying and race coverage from Monaco. Have a great week, guys. Take care.